depending on how your leverage is, like let's say you have a lever where the bottom of the load or the bottom of the position, you have optimum leverage, and the top of the position, you have garbage leverage. For eccentric training, if I do it this way, it will be safe for me because the peak is up here and the external lever becomes easier and easier and easier. So therefore, if I fail, I'm good, right? So if I do this with 2 and somebody helps me up and they lower, 2 help me up and they lower, or with a machine, we're good because the peak is not at long length. But here's the thing. If I do it the opposite way, the peak will now be at long length. So I accelerate once I reach failure. But because the peak is at a longer length, now you get this thing. This also refers to partial eccentric training. And this is about extra force, or the passive force that is allowed by sarcomeres going past the threshold of length. So certain muscles will have stretch-mediated hypertrophy, such as your calves. You know what I mean? If you walk downhill, stretch-mediated hypertrophy, long length, eccentric peak or eccentric components right there at that long length, and with a progressive overload, if you get there, the adaptations will be more beneficial because specifically, you put the angle of peak torque at longer length. So the moment where your muscle internally experiences the bigger force, that shifts. Here's how that shifts. Your tendon attachment doesn't change. It will be on the same place. But the muscle architecture will change several things. It will change pennation angle. So let's say here is attachment and insertion. The muscle fibers don't run this way. They run like this. They run this if these are the 2 points. They don't run they don't run parallel. There's a level of perpendicularity to where they come from. Now, the more perpendicular they become, the stronger the capacity for this muscle to contract. But fascicle length will be sacrificed. Fascicle length allows for strength at longer lengths. So when fascicle length changes, you're talking about sliding filament theory, where the filaments will now reach at longer lengths. Think of doing inclined bicep curls. You'll have a stretch from the shoulder component and a stretch from the elbow component. Optimal for stretch mediated hypertrophy, where if you do like a preacher curl, it's more of a pump where you don't feel the same stretch. Oh, it's being torn off the bone almost. You don't feel that. You don't experience that. Now, because not all muscles have these sarcomere thresholds at the same length. Some thresholds will never be reached. This is why there's a difference between how well muscles respond to training with a stretch. Like for instance, your triceps, pretty good, but any more shoulder change only changes the contribution of the long head. It doesn't change the sarcomere length or the peak sarcomere length or a lot of it. So it doesn't have the same level of adaptive capacity.